Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope you had a great weekend. We attended a Halloween party, which was quite fun for Hannah, of course. But, we got a chance to go through this tunnel, which was actually quite good. Macro thoughts: the Mexican peso, which is the Donald Trump barometer, sold off naturally on the news that we heard from the FBI. I'll put up a chart and you can see what it's been doing. And then I was very bearish on gilt yields, and you can see what's subsequently happened in this chart from Bloomberg. Home thoughts: I like this photograph, mother and cub, north slope of Alaska, David Yarrow. These bears have an enormous size, don't they? They look like elephants do when you see them up close. 8,000 flights in the air right now. That number will nearly double in 10 hours, according to Flight Radar. And then I couldn't resist this. Petrasky was his generation's most influential bartender. The standards of mixing and service, he said, first at New York's and Milk and Honey, then at bars ranging from London to Los Angeles to Melbourne, emerged within his lifetime as ideals taken for granted by bars all over the world, atmospheric cocktail den details that were simply expressions of his old-fashioned tastes in clothing and music, personal preferences for suspenders and swing jazz, went on to become, as abused by imitators, cliches in a few short years. The very concept of the 21st century speakeasy, a hush-hush watering hole guarded by passwords and esoteric entrances, owes itself to Petrasky's desire to run a tiny bar without annoying his neighbors. Political reflections: Hillary Clinton tweeted, "In 9 days we'll choose who succeeds POTUS in the Oval Office and make sure we make the right choice." And before I get to those events that happened on Friday, let me just point you at another article from the New York Magazine. Final days, Trump's advisors are working hard to plan their own futures while riding out to the roller coaster end of the campaign. "I'm on the battlefield right now, which is amazing," Donald Trump said as he surveyed the Gettysburg National Military Park. "When you talk about historic, this is the whole ball game." It was the afternoon of October 22nd, and Trump was speaking by phone shortly after delivering a speech at the place where Lincoln pledged to unite a divided country. Then they're referring to this Bloomberg Businessweek article, which we've already looked at. Trump's son-in-law cum de facto campaign manager, Jared Kushner, is building a proprietary database of some 14 million email addresses and credit card numbers of Trump supporters. That list could form the foundation of a new Trump media company. According to one Republican briefed on the talks, Kushner has approached Wall Street bankers and pitched ideas for media startups. "How do we monetize this?" he's asked. Through a spokesperson, Kushner denied having such meetings. "This thing was doable if we did it the right way," one advisor told me. "The best thing we could do is have you move into a cave for the next 4 months," Manafort told Trump during a meeting. "If you're not on the campaign trail, the focus is on her and we win. Whoever the focus is on will lose. The election is about the American people, it's not about you," Manafort told Trump, according to a person briefed on the conversation. Trump countered with Breitbart's report on Khan's purported belief in Sharia. "He's not running for president," Manafort shot back. "The Clintons did this to us to waste our time getting off message." Paul Manafort didn't understand him, a long-time Trump confidant told me. "Trump is going to do whatever the FUCK wants. You have to trick him into doing what you want." Think of the bunker right before Hitler killed himself. Donald's in denial, they're all in denial. Well, Donald's got a real chance, and obviously it's a curveball now. Um, but let me get to that. A scandal too far, Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton, and a test of loyalty. Then Carlos Danger happened. Anthony D. Weiner, the husband of Mrs. Clinton's closest aide, Huma Abedin, was running for mayor of New York when news broke that he had continued to exchange lewd messages with women online. After the practice cost him his congressional seat. This time he used the embarrassing Spanish-inspired moniker, Carlos Danger. The tawdry storyline and Miss Aberdeen's closeness to Mrs. Clinton made the events explode far beyond New York, dragging Mrs. Clinton's name into messy headlines about penis pictures, Mr. Weiner's descriptions of his sexual appetites, and his online paramour named Sydney Leathers. Now, with Mrs. Clinton seemingly on the cusp of winning the White House, Mr. Weiner, who once described himself as a perpetually horny middle-aged man, has pulled her into another drama. Federal investigators looking into his sexual messaging with an underage girl stumbled upon thousands of emails potentially pertinent to the FBI inquiry into Mrs. Clinton's private email server. And then we put up a photograph of Huma Abedin boarding the Clinton campaign flight in Westchester County, New York on Monday. Minor problem, this man knows all Hillary and Huma Abedin's secrets and has probably made a deal with the FBI to save himself. FBI discovered new emails weeks ago. Stash includes classified emails likely deleted by Clinton. This is the important point and the dangerous one. This is surely a very major curveball for Hillary Clinton. Thailand's Crown Prince to fly abroad, return next month. He's not keen on becoming king, is he? South Koreans have been riveted for weeks by a scandal involving the president and a shadowy advisor, accused of being a shaman fortune teller by opposition politicians. The elusive figure, Choi Soon-sil, is a private citizen with no security clearance, yet she had remarkable influence over President Park Geun-hye. She was allowed to edit some of Miss Park's most important speeches. The news channel Chosun showed video of presidential aides kowtowing to her after she apparently gave them orders. She apparently had an advance copy of the president's itinerary for an overseas trip, the TV station said. She even had power over the president's wardrobe, overseeing the design of her dresses and telling her what colors to wear on certain days. It's quite a lurky story, incredible one. Mr. Choi, this is the father, was the founder of an obscure sect called the Church of Eternal Life. He befriended Miss Park, 40 years his junior, soon after her mother was assassinated in 1974. According to a report by the Korean intelligence agency from the 1970s that was published by a South Korean news magazine in 2007, Mr. Choi initially approached Miss Park by telling her that her mother had appeared to him in his dreams, asking him to help her. So you couldn't really make this up. Ms. Choi effectively told the president to do this and do that. The newspaper quoted Mr. Lee as saying there was nothing the president could decide alone. So it's a difficult situation. She's had all her close advisors resign. Let's see how she plays it from here. Turkey has suspended airstrikes over Syria, has halted air support for its October 22nd ground incursion into Syria in response to a vow by Damascus to shoot down Turkish Air Force planes over Syrian skies. An official in Ankara added that Turkey had also cut down on its flights in other parts of Syria. This decision came after Syrian air defense missiles supplied by Russia locked in on Turkish jets, an action that Damascus would not have undertaken without a nod from Moscow. The Turkish army, which occupied a 5,000 square kilometer enclave in northern Syria earlier this month, is left now without air cover and in no position to implement President Erdogan's plans for military intervention in the Syrian conflict. I saw this tweet, I can't verify it. Superstation 95, massive US military build-up at Diego Garcia. Syria attack believed imminent. Charles Glass, in a very interesting piece, the US and Russia ensure a balance of terror in Syria. The struggle for Syria, as Patrick Seale titled his 1965 classic, has escalated steadily since Britain seized the territory from Turkey in 1918. The British turned it over to France in 1920 and took it back from Vichy in 1942. Following nominal independence in 1946, Syria became a theatre of Cold War rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union. The stream of military coups between 1949 and 1970 concluded with the Hafez al-Assad putsch that left Syria in the Kremlin camp. Assad, however, proved anything but subservient to his superpower benefactor. The struggle for Syria continued in desultory fashion as Syria irritated Moscow by flirting with the US in Lebanon and sending troops to support the American reconquista of Kuwait in 1991. The US soon reverted to form, labeling Syria a terrorist state and condemning both its support for Hezbollah in Lebanon and its alliance with Iran. In 2011, the struggle became a war. The US and Russia, as well as local hegemons, backed opposite sides, ensuring a balance of terror that has devastated the country and defies resolution. On the eve of civil war, Phillips writes, Syria and the Middle East appeared deceptively stable. It turned out the region was static rather than stable. Hints of imminent change were few but not invisible. Whenever Assad's back is against the wall, Russia and Iran pitch in with more help. When the rebels retreat, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Turkey send more fighters and weapons. If Hillary Clinton becomes Commander-in-Chief on January 20, 2017, her promise of an American patrol no-fly zone will lead to direct confrontation between Russian and American warplanes and draw the US deeper into a war that Phillips believes Obama was right to avoid. She should read this book first. 2 Russian Akula-class attack submarines have entered the Mediterranean, going towards Syria. We learn that Malaysia could now join Manila as China's new best friend, upsetting Asian geopolitics. The pivot is combusting. International markets, look at this. Japan's biggest problem in 5 seconds by David Inglis. Currency markets, euro 109.62, dollar index 98.46, Japanese yen 104.82, Swissy 0.9881, the pound 121.83, the Aussie 0.7609, India rupee 66.771, South Korean won 11.4401, the Rial 320.46, Egyptian pound 8.89, and the Rand 13.74. Dollar yen, I'll put up a chart that already has posted. It's at 104.82 last. Feels as if the dollar is running out of steam, but let's keep an eye on it. And you thought the Swiss had ditched their franc cap. Have a look at this chart. You can see they've had to intervene about 4 times. Commodity markets, gold lost at 1276.59. I think it's capped by 1300. Year's best metal, this is from Javier Blas, is zinc. Have a look at the chart. Brent oil down to $49.29 a barrel as OPEC and non-OPEC talks seem to have fallen apart. And look at this oil underperforming the industrial metals in particular. This is another chart from Aurelia. Emerging markets increase in Tata Group book value between 2004 and 2012 was 7-fold. What a story. Sub-Saharan Africa, Uhuru Kenyatta met with the Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir in Khartoum. I'll put up a photograph. It looks like a pretty grand reception room. Van Rooyen visited the Guptas 7 times in 7 days before being appointed. And that plays on the whole story of state capture. There's an interesting piece in Daily Maverick talking about the Guptas and a 250 million rand kickback laundry unpacked in full. South African all shares up 0.21% this year. Dollar versus rand 1377, and Gordon is putting some spine back into the rand. Egyptian EGX30 up 19.29% this year. Nigeria all-share down 4.71% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 14.25% this year. My weekend piece was about Mozambique, from boom to bust, a cautionary tale. Mozambique popped onto the global radar in 2011 when huge gas reserves were discovered offshore. We visited in 2012, and I recall the wife being seriously astonished when we jumped into a taxi and the driver turned out to be Portuguese. I said Mozambique could be the next Qatar, so we stuffed ourselves with wonderfully flavoursome tiger prawns. Interestingly, I was a guest of the state of Qatar at the Doha Forum earlier this year and caught up with President Gwebeza in person. I'm surprised that Qatar has not seized itself of the Mozambique opportunity at these rock-bottom prices. The IMF predicted a 24% GDP expansion for 2021 when grass production was expected to begin. I returned in May 2014 for the IMF's flagship Africa Rising conference. By that time, Maputo's skyline was a sea of cranes. Further north, Tet was booming. Then I noticed that Credit Suisse and VTB sold some tuna bonds on behalf of Mozambique. The story around these bonds was very opaque. $850 million was borrowed to buy a fleet of tuna fishing boats so that Mozambique could export fish to the European Union and elsewhere, but the boats do not fulfill EU specifications, said one NGO worker based in Maputo. At the most, this is gross misconduct by the government. $850 million was taken out, but from what I can see, there is only around $50 million worth of assets as a result, said a lawyer based in Maputo. Things then became murkier and murkier. Not only did Imatum, the tuna fishing company, fall short of its targets, but $500 million of the tuna bond was found to be for maritime security and had to be reallocated to the defense budget. Even when they did sail in Imatum's early days, the fleet never caught the amount of fish needed to pay off the debt. Imatum's results pointed to the fleet catching just $450,000 of tuna a year, compared with sales of $18 million that were forecast at this stage of its life in a 2013 feasibility study circulated by the government. Further loans were uncovered, spanning not only Empresa Mocambano de Imatum, but other companies, Pro Indicus and Mozambique Asset Management. The total was around $2 billion. Africa Confidential reported that Chancellor Angela Merkel asked President Nyusi when he met her in Berlin in April 2016, "Where is the money? And also, are you in charge?" Things have accelerated to the downside further. Mozambique's Eurobonds, which were restructured tuna bonds, have fallen by as much as 24 cents on the dollar to $57.18. The yield is above 20%. The finance minister told investors on October 25 that the country was in debt distress and wouldn't be able to make an interest payment on the debt due in January. The Metical has crashed over 70% this year. Debt to GDP is estimated to be 131% by the finance ministry. IMF will withhold any further funding in Mozambique, which told creditors this week it wants to restructure its commercial loans while the country is still classified as debt distressed. A spokesman for the lender said, "In line with fund policies, we cannot disperse funds in a situation where we think the debt is not sustainable." This is Jerry Rice. As with any country, to be able to disperse, we need to know that the debt is sustainable. There are plenty of lessons to be learned from this tale. The first is around leveraging the balance sheet. If you're leveraging the balance sheet, this is something Sub-Saharan Africa has been doing aggressively, then you're mortgaging the future. If you're mortgaging the future, you need to make sure you can first afford the mortgage payments, and second, that the investments you're making are going to provide a meaningful return on your investment. There is very little return on investment on increasing salaries for civil servants, which a lot of African countries did. Africa Rising was the conference I attended 885 days ago, and this is a photograph I took at that same time of the evening as it spread against the Maputo sky. We've already discussed the IMF. They're saying no to Mozambique aid talks while countries in debt distress. Mozambique bonds extended their slump as investors brace for more pain. Have a look at this from Bloomberg Emerging Markets. Kenya economic update has just come out from the World Bank, talking of forecasts of 5.9% in 2016 and 6.1% by 2018. Despite global weaknesses, the report notes Kenya's growth has remained consistently solid, driven by investment and private consumption. The report, the country ready for itself for potential downside risks that could derail growth, recommends improving the productivity of public investment to further accelerate growth potential. Kenya Power and Lighting have reported full-year profit after tax edged 1.668% better. Full-year non-fuel revenue was up 11.878%. Full-year revenue up 1.509%. Operating profit up 6.88%. Profit before tax down 3.95%. Profit after tax up 1.668%. EPS up 1.575%. Dividend, they're paying a final dividend of 30 cents a share. Add 20 cents of the interim, pretty good payout of 50 cents. Electricity sales grew by 3.6%, combined with an improved average yield, led to an 11.9% increase in sales revenue. It looks to be on a trading PE of 2.28, and with a dividend yield of 5.64, it looks egregiously priced. Mumias Sugar also reported full-year earnings per share was minus 3 shillings and 9 cents. Revenue was up 13.641%. Loss after tax down 3.8% worse than the previous full year. Earnings per share 3 shillings and 9 cents negative, 3 shillings and 4 cents negative the previous time. They revalued property, plant and equipment. That threw off 9.183 billion shillings, which meant that comprehensive income was up at 1.76 billion. Talking of a continued decrease in Kenya's sugar production, mainly due to cane shortage, as cane farmers in Western Kenya moved to produce other crops due to low returns from cane farming. Water businesses discontinued, sugar production increased by 6%, ethanol production increased by 20%. Total revenues up 13.6%, no dividends. Surging raw sugar prices have not lifted earnings. It's rock bottom. But the question is, when is the turnaround coming? Nairobi All Share down 5.94% this year. Botswana's Choppies is to inject $7.55 million into its loss-making Okwala supermarkets here in Kenya and will open 12 more stores over 3 years. NSE 20 down 20.69% this year. Wishing you a great